You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell. Sponsored by Absolute Mortgage, a division of Pinnacle Capital Mortgage Corporation. Now, in the studio, local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to The Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here at 1150 AM KKNW, the June 4 show, bringing in expert advice and inside knowledge on today's events in our local economy and how it will affect your money. If you're hearing my show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast, but you can call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. And right now I have in studio Kim Fraser with John L. Scott. Kim, thanks for coming back in studio.
Thank you for having me.
Excited to talk about sellers and what they need to do to prepare their home. We're going to go through all of it for the listeners today, so it's going to be an exciting segment. A little bit about Kim. Kim, again, is with John L. Scott. Kim's been a real estate agent with John L. Scott for 14 years. It has been recognized in the top 1% of all John L. Scott's agents for 2015. This was Kim's fifth time earning the top 1% designation. Kim has sold over 800 homes in her career and sold 79 homes just in 2005. So pretty amazing numbers talk, and you definitely have the stats and the numbers to show that you're successful in what you do. And like any other industry, the more sales and things, opportunities that you're working with clients, the more that you're learning, because there's so many different things that are happening in the market, especially when we get into an environment like we are now. So I really appreciate your expertise, Kim. So today we're going to be talking about preparing your home for sale from start to finish. So Kim's going to take us through staging, pricing, marketing, showing, negotiating, and the close. So Kim, consulting with a client regarding to repairs needed for a property, deferred maintenance, landscaping, bringing in handyman, contractor, landscaper bids. How do you go through that process with your sellers?
So when I meet with them the first time, typically, most of the time I'm meeting a client at their home. Occasionally they'll meet me outside of the home at my office or at a Starbucks or something. And then we'll go to their home and kind of do a walkthrough of, what, in my opinion, needs to be done to make it market ready. I think sometimes as sellers, when you're living in the home a long period of time, you don't see things that we catch as agents and what buyers would be looking for and what a good buyer's agent's going to be pointing out as pluses and minuses to each property. So my job is to have as an honest of a conversation with the client as possible, letting them know things that they may or may not be aware of that we will probably need to remedy if they are wanting to get top dollar for the property.
Makes sense. And do you have your power partners of people that you're introducing them to make sure that they're getting that best quality of work and things that they're doing on their home?
Absolutely. I have a list of anywhere from general contractors, stagers, landscapers, roofing contractors, painters, different specialists in their field that I can refer them to so they can get, several bids to find out what the most cost-effective approach is going to be for the client.
And I think that's so important, Kim. And just in case you're listening and don't know this, as real estate experts, they can't get any kickback or anything from any of their team. They're put together because they want to make sure their job is to kind of oversee everything to make sure that their clients are getting taken care of in all areas. And so I think it's really important to work with those experts that you have already screened to make sure that they're going to do quality work. So keep that in mind if you're looking at selling your property. So Kim, preparing the property for sale, talking about cleaning the property, decluttering it, staging, bringing in house cleaners. You want your property to be market ready on that day. So how are you helping in navigating through that process with your sellers?
Well, I think the first thing we do is we do a couple things at the same time. You can be tackling like exterior projects and things like that, and sometimes interior projects, painting, carpet, some repair work and things like that. At the same time, maybe the property's being decluttered. A lot of times, most houses are not ready to be listed on a day's notice. Most people need anywhere from a week to a couple of my most recent clients. It took up to 2 months to get their properties ready to go just because they were living in the property and life was happening.
Yes.
So I have a couple that I started working with back in February that are just getting ready to launch now. So it's been almost 4 months for a couple of my higher end clients because there's just so many moving parts.
Yeah.
So we kind of get that decluttering process going first, what's not necessary. And it's a different process process. I have one of my clients recently that just was actually moving out of their house altogether into their rental early because they didn't want to have to deal with trying to live through the process.
Yes.
That's not an option for most clients, unfortunately. So we kind of have to, minimize what they need on a daily basis to make the showings, especially if they have pets or kids and things like that they're trying to live with. So getting it decluttered. Once we're decluttered, then we can start the deep cleaning process to make sure everything's nice and shiny and looking good, and then bring in the stagers to make it show at its best light. And it's different too. Staging a vacant property is going to be a much different approach than staging an occupied property. Most staging companies are not really excited about bringing their really nice furniture into a home that's occupied, especially if there are kids and pets there, just because of damage to the property. We mostly then use the client's existing pieces, might bring a few pieces in, but probably the stagers are a little more selective, or they're going to charge a little bit more in case of damage and things like that. And then you'll be bringing in, they're less concerned about like vignettes and accessories and mirrors and pillows and things like that, as they are, nice high-end furniture.
Got it.
Is a little bit more readily received, a little bit better from the stager if it's vacant than occupied.
So the decluttering process, I would imagine sometimes it's a counseling process with the sellers, because it's not that their items and the things that they have are not beautiful and important and have value in them, but it's personal to them. So can you talk a little bit about what that decluttering process means?
Yeah, I think that, one, depersonalizing all their family photos, which is really, really hard. And I love people's family photos, so the houses that have them, I'm walking through the house looking at all of them, which can be a distraction because then I'm busier spending time looking at their cute family than the house. So I probably, I think most advice from most real estate agents is to remove any personal family photos and personal possessions like that off of the walls, and then just simplifying, paring things down, making things as neutral as possible, trying to appeal depending on what your demographic is in the market that you're serving, maybe putting little pieces in that fits in the Bellevue market. If, a lot of, Asian, Chinese buyers, maybe something that might appeal to them. So you want little touches of just maybe the culture of what you're kind of appealing to as well in the home, and kind of taking that approach as well and being mindful. But a lot of times I'll bring boxes over to my clients just to help stop, we'll kind of set aside a pile of, okay, this all has to go, leave this out, and we'll let the stager work with this and let them determine what stays and what goes.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. So it's just about getting that emotional connection with people that are coming into the house. You want them to be able to visualize and envision themselves in the home, not the current owners. So reviewing recent solds in the area to come up with a comparable properties, contacting an appraiser for, very difficult homes with no available comps if needed. So walk me through how you're working with your sellers in comping the property to make sure, because it's a challenging thing to be able to determine what the value of that home is, and really being able to maximize the buyers coming in to give multiple offers and bid that up.
Absolutely. And that's a fine line. There's always a concern if you price it too low and nobody makes an offer that I'm selling my house for less than what it's worth. And I tell my clients, if you only have one offer, then it was probably priced at what it's worth.
Yes.
It's not in this market. If you price your home competitively, you should get more than one offer. As far as the East Side or Seattle market would go. Now, South End or up north, it might be a little bit slower. But
I hear they're starting to prick up too.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah? It's crazy.
Oh, it's just a tough market right now. So that's the fine line. I have one that just sold. I listed it for $998 over in Lakemont, and we sold for 15% over. We sold for $150. 7 offers, 15% above list price, cash offer, 2-week close, no inspection, no financing.
Wow.
So we knew I wasn't surprised it went to 1.1. I figured our window was between $1 million and 1.1, so we kept it right at $1 million, knowing that we would let the market kind of drive the price.
Yeah. See, so if you're a seller right now, you hear that listed at 1, knowing it is worth or valued 1.1. I mean, there's a strategy behind this. And when you hire somebody, an expert like Kim, and her numbers show that she is, you've got to listen to the advice and what they're saying that you need to do, because it's about creating that sense of urgency on that property. So it's, again, it's a challenging thing to be able to figure that out. And that's why listening to your advice is so important.
Thank you.
So discussing with your clients their goals and motivation in regarding to the pricing, because I know that conversation can be a little challenging sometime, and get it right the first time. Occasionally buyers are overpriced their homes and can cause them to linger on the market. So how are you having that conversation with your clients to get them to understand that this is what we need to do to maximize the profit?
Well, I kind of share with them the high and the low. I always try to get my clients top dollar. I'm never trying to take the, easy way out to, get the price as low as possible to make my job easier. My job is to maximize the value for my client each and every time. However, no matter what my price is, it always seems like the client wants to push another 5 or 10%, or another agents come in and they're trying to get the price up higher. And so I kind of just put that back on their court. I'm like, well, what comps are they using? These are the comparables that I have. That sounds great. I had a client recently, I said probably 1.6, and they said, well, this other agent said 1.7. I'm like, well, then why don't we go to 1.8?
Yeah.
Because I don't see any comps at 1.7. So you might as well be 1.8.
So talk about that listing for, the agents that come in and say that they're getting the listing based on the higher price. It's not about the price that you put it on the market. It's about the price that's going to happen at the end. So tell my sellers out there the risk of overpricing a home.
Well, one example, I have a listing currently. That was the example that I just gave. I came up with a 1.598 list price. The other agent came up with a 1.7. I jokingly said, well, why don't we just put it out at 1.8 since we're not using comparables anyway? We might as well try to get you 1.8. I thought, what the heck? I'm paid on commission, so it works for all of us. So we ended up getting an offer. First week on the market, we had 2 offers. Both of them came under 1.6 million. One was 1.550. One was 1.580. I got both of them to come up to list price because I did have them want 2 offers. So I did get them up to the 1.650 price. The first buyer ended up walking. So we came back on the market. They fell apart during inspection, came back on the market. And now we're just today going into contract with that second buyer that we didn't take the first time.
Okay.
Now at 1.6 million, which was my recommended price to begin with 3 weeks ago.
So how does that, work, Kim, when everything is online and people are searching based on value or based on what the list price is when, things are... I would think it would be better to list low to get people to look at it where they could just actually decide not to even look at the home because... And we're
only talking like 3 to 5%. We're not talking 20% low.
Yes.
You're just slightly, if you're slightly at market or below, and I don't even think that price was extremely low. The price that I had recommended and the other agent was about $100,000 difference.
Yeah.
And we are getting basically the list price that I recommended, initially. And the other thing too that people have to take into variables, a 2-story is going to price out differently than a Rambler, than a 2-story with a basement or 1-story with a basement.
Yep.
Below grade square footage is not going to, comp out at the same price per square foot as something above grade. So I think as a consumer, a lot of people aren't educated to that as well. Even some agents aren't aware of the disparity and how appraisers value that below grade square footage. And so I think it's important as consumers and as agents, we educate the sellers and the buyers as to the pros and cons of, pricing and where are the square footages that you are pricing for each property, each one's individual.
So you talked about appraisers. Let's talk about that for a second. What are you doing to to help with the appraisal process and preparing information for the appraiser and being that extra hand to help them with their job to be more favorable in the ending outcome? Absolutely.
Well, many times we'll have removed the key box just because the buyers don't or the sellers don't want to have people accessing the property after the sale, and also that gives us an opportunity as agents to meet the appraiser out there, answer any questions that they may have.
So important.
Can you drop a few tips of some homes that recently sold that may be a little bit not as nice or that were very comparable that they may or may not have seen?
Yes.
I actually do get a lot of calls in the Lake Tapps market. I do sell a lot of waterfront homes down there as well. And a lot of appraisers will call me and ask me questions regarding other properties, so I think
you're kind of building that rapport with the community.
Absolutely.
Appraisers.
Yes.
Brilliant.
So then it's always nice. So if they got to list your own or to appraise one of your properties, you've helped them out a little bit, or they're like, hey, do you know this property? How would it compare to this property? So I think as agents, it's wise for us to be cooperative with the appraisers if and when possible to make sure they're getting accurate information to help their own case, but will also hopefully help your clients down the road as well.
Totally agree. So planning market, planning or putting together the plan, pictures, virtual tours, videos, brochures, brokers open, mega open houses, where you're doing that list launch, websites for Zillow. What different things are you coaching with your clients as far as that marketing strategy?
Absolutely. Everything's online these days, so you want to make sure you have great online presence and images and things like that. So I definitely always hire professional photography, always.
Okay. Okay.
I think some people still use their iPhones, believe it or not. Every once in a while, some agents, I'm like, oh my gosh, those are the most horrible pictures I've ever seen. But they somehow make it online. So I think for those of us who actually spend the money and invest in our clients' listings with professional photography, and it's more common today than it used to be, say 5 years ago even, that you have great, photography. It's important. It costs anywhere from probably a low end would be $350 up to $700 depending on the home.
Now, is it something that the seller pays?
No, the agent
it's all
would pay.
part of it. Okay, all right.
I mean, for me, I absorb that cost.
Okay,
I think some agents may try to pass that. I do know a few agents that do pass that cost off. But I think that as the agent, that's part of the expense that you're hiring me to do. So all of this is included in my listing fee. I don't put any additional cost back onto the consumer. Everything would be taken care of for me. I feel like that's what they're hiring me for.
The staging and all of that?
Depending on the commission structure, staging would be. So I have a few right now that I've paid for, and I have a couple that my clients had paid for. Depending on what we've worked out as far as the commission and things like that, and what we've done to be able to put that together.
Makes total sense. So when it comes to the pictures, because I know that first impression, it does matter, because that first impression they have of the home when they're looking at these different properties online, the pictures, it can have that extension of the emotional connection once they make it out to the property. So what other special things is important in marketing? Because I know you do a lot of high-end homes, and I would imagine that even steps it up to a different dynamic when you're going through that marketing.
Absolutely. So a couple of things that we've done recently too. We have a new video that we've been doing. It's Matterport video, which is like a 3D tour, which is really exciting.
Wow.
So you can basically, it's almost like you're walking through the home. It just takes that whole virtual tour experience up to a new level. So we actually purchased the software and cameras ourselves this last year, so we're not limited to having to work with a photographer schedule. We can just do it in-house and get it taken care of when the weather is decent, and we're not having to worry about that. Another thing that we do, so videos. So we can do on the higher end listings too. We can do a video shoot of that house, and it's really nice. We can either have it narrated by myself or by my clients, and telling them, what features they loved about the home and why they loved living there. So that's another really nice feature that we can also add, which is an option for consumers as well. And those run about $1,500, anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500, depending on, the company that you use. But I think it's a nice, invaluable, addition that you can add to for those higher end listings and things like that. So those are a couple of things that we do. Of course, high quality, brochures, nice quality materials. I think it's always a reflection of, the property and yourself as an agent in the presentation of the listing. Not only are you selling the house, but you're selling yourself for anyone in the future looking to do business or hire someone to list their home. And then another thing too, brokers opens, depending on what area you live in. Some brokers opens are more well attended than others, depending on what region the agent's working out of. Different markets are better attended than others. And then open houses are really, really popular in King County. So King County open houses get a ton of traction, a lot of activity every weekend. The last weekend, I think I had 35 to 45 people per day at my open house.
Really? Wow.
Which is exciting. That was like in the $1.3 million price point. So, an average price point for the Bellevue area. But I guess upper average, know, isn't that crazy? 1.2. Yeah.
1.2 is just an average price here on the east side.
It's a little higher, but Mercer Island, it's a 1,200 square foot Rambler. Just kidding.
Oh my.
So, so the open houses are getting a lot of traction and things like that. And typically what we're seeing is that agents will list a house on a Thursday, brokers open Friday, Saturday, Sunday, open house, review offers, maybe Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday of the following week. If any received.
And so when you mention a listing launch, what is that?
So that first weekend, something that we really do heavily at John L. Scott is getting out that day to the community, the day before the open house. Putting little door knockers, little signs on their door handle, inviting them to the open house, getting kind of an early entry for neighbors about an hour ahead of time, inviting them to come in because they're all curious anyway. So you might as well just go address them and say, hey, come on over. I'd love to meet you. And also another opportunity, maybe they have a friend or family member wanting to move into the neighborhood as well, which is great. And then just really getting lots of balloons, lots of signage. I have about 20 signs at my open houses that we put through the neighborhoods that we're doing the open house, trying to draw as much traffic in as possible. Which is nice. I just had a mega open house a couple weeks ago. We mailed out 4,500 invitations to the closest 4,500 residents, inviting them to come by and see the property.
A lot of residents to get that marketing. So negotiating multiple offers, if received, and the offer period and backup offers, how do you coordinate all that, Kim?
So basically, talk with the client prior to listings. It has to be put in the MLS that you're having an offer review period. And any offers, if no offers reviewed, or if any offers received, will be reviewed on such and such a date. And it's really, we have to be really careful as a consumer. We can't put a date out there of Tuesday, and then all of a sudden on Sunday we're taking another offer without really having contacted everyone. And if you've done an open house, it really puts the consumers out there at a disadvantage. So if you're going to put an offer review date out there, make sure it's a date that you can stick by.
Okay.
Just because people maybe will wait or get their hopes up and think they have a few days to kind of wait and get their financing together and things like that.
Yep.
So we usually just get that date and then collect offers. I did one last night, received 3 offers on a listing, and by 10:30 last night we had it signed around and pending.
Congratulations.
So thanks.
So close. Before we close up our time together, let's talk about closing up this property for the seller. So there's a lot of stressful things that happen during a closing process that if you're working with a great agent, buyers and sellers just think this process can, just go smoothly, but all the work starts once you're under contract. And so what are some things to be cautious of, and what are you doing on the back end to ensure everything is running smoothly for your sellers?
Well, one of the things that's really important that I've noticed recently that sellers sometimes have moved or they haven't given the escrow accurate forwarding information.
Okay.
So as far as loan payoffs, things like that, first, second, HOA contacts, things like that, it's really important for sellers to make sure that their escrow company has, all of their pertinent information for the payoffs, because sometimes that can slow down the process.
Okay.
So that's something really key that the seller needs to make sure they get that escrow packet turned into escrow right away. And then for myself, just kind of managing escrow, managing through the inspection process, the other agent expectations, any work orders that need to be done, and then just making sure whether the seller's in town or out of town, coordinating signings, things like that, key exchange, and then recording numbers, and then closing.
I know you're doing a lot more than that, Kim. You've got all kinds of things coordinate to make sure the lender is doing their job, escrow's doing their job, titles here. There's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
And, I just, as our time wraps up here, for any sellers, and if you're a buyer, Kim works with both buyers and sellers, working with an expert in the local market with proven numbers, proven success is so important. This is a lot of money. This market is crazy. It's competitive. It's hard. But you can have a smooth process if you're working with somebody that's got a smooth system and just this is what you do day in and day out. So, Kim, thank you so much for spending time with me today. Look forward to having you come back again in the near future.
Thank you, Tina. A pleasure as always.
Coming up next on the Money Hour, how would you like to live on a floating home? My gosh, I would love to live on a floating home. I'm excited. I've 6 years in my show, and I've never had an opportunity to talk about floating homes with experts. This is what they do, and they work with a lot of houses on the water. I have Barry Buchner and Enrico Pozzo with Real Logic Sotheby's International Realty right here on 1150 AM KKNW after this short break.